Hey, everybody. I'm about to start this episode of the Wadcast podcast with your host, Eddie Ift. I'm talking about him in third person because he's here right now. He's sitting right where I am because that's me. I am your host, and I'm about to start this episode. Before I do, I'm going to talk to you about the New Wave Swim Buoy. What? What did I just say? New Wave Swim Buoy? Do you even know how to spell buoy? Well, I do. It's B-U-O-Y. That's right. And they're our sponsor for today's show. Because ever since the introduction of the swimming in the 2011 CrossFit Games, swimming has become a standard event in the games. If you don't want to be exiting the water dead fucking last, you want to incorporate swimming into your weekly training regimen. That's right, but just like weightlifting and gymnastics, swimming takes a lot of practice. Swimming in the open water is a whole different game. You're taking punches from other people, running into the water, and inevitably getting kicked in the face underwater. Training in open water in race-like conditions is critical for your survival as a competitor. Saying that you're not a strong swimmer is no longer enough and will not keep you alive when your heart rate's pounding at 95% max. You feel nauseous, disoriented, and you can't touch the bottom or stop or catch your breath. That's when the panic sets in. Yes, panic, even for me. I've been a lifeguard and a surfer for over 20 years. Swimming in the ocean without my surfboard or a kayak support made me panic. So what did I do? I reached out to New Wave Swim Buoy. They've designed a float that provides open water swimmers a personal confidence boosting device that tows behind you and is within arm's reach. New Wave Swim Buoy will give you the mental confidence to push your swimming training. Swimming gives you an edge. No question. If it's in the CrossFit Games, it should be in your workout because it's in mine. New Wave is easy to inflate, light to carry, no pumps necessary. New Wave attaches to your waist with the provided belt and trails behind you. Doesn't interfere. Thing is great, whether you're just learning to swim or you're Olympic level swimmer. Confidence, comfort, visibility. Why did I say visibility? Well, you don't want a boat or jet ski coming crashing into you when you have 3 more sets left for the day. That would probably ruin your dinner, huh? I know that a lot of CrossFits out there are using it. CrossFit 417 Club in Missouri uses New Wave swim buoys to make sure no one disappears and all the athletes are accounted for. A huge extra bonus, the buoy also has a compartment that's waterproof so you can carry your phone, your keys, protein bar, whatever you want to store on your longer swims. So the New Wave is a must-have for anyone serious about being an all-around athlete. Confidence, visibility, storage, all to help you become a well-rounded CrossFit athlete. So do yourself a favor, head over to your local Amazon store, search New Wave Swim Buoys, and use the promo code WADCAST1 for 10% off your next purchase. That's WADCAST1. Go to Amazon, get it, use that promo code in the checkout. Guys, a few little administrative details. I am live. I'm touring right now. I want to thank all the guys that came out to where was it? I was at the Galway Hooker down in North Carolina, in Cornelius, North Carolina. That was a one-night only, sold out. Thank you, guys. A bunch of CrossFitters. I will be back there down to Cornelius. That's where my in-laws live. So I'm going to come out and go to a couple CrossFit gyms down there. I'll see you there. And also coming up, big dates, Minneapolis, the 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st. Oh, I'm sorry, no show on the 30th. No show on the 30th. This is in Minneapolis at the House of Comedy. That is New Year's Eve. Come out and see me. That is Minneapolis. And I have guests lined up for like the next month. I have no one in Minneapolis. If you can think of anyone good that I should interview in Minneapolis, let me know because I'm there for like 4 or 5 days. Love to do it. I've got James Fitzgerald, one of the first time ever winner of the CrossFit Games. I'm going to be interviewing him in Scottsdale when I go down there and go to OPEX. But he is, I got a tight little schedule with him. I found him because he's all over the world. So I'm getting to see him when I'm performing at the House of Comedy in Scottsdale. That's the first week in January. So come out and see me there. Other dates, I'm gonna have one of the OGs in CrossFit out in Ann Arbor at Hyperflex. But I'll be working out there, and I'll also be at the Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase. So come see me there. Rooster Teeth Feathers in Sunnyvale, California. And then Pittsburgh. I come back to Pittsburgh, the Improv. I'm in Pittsburgh right now, but I'll be back there the end of the month at the Pittsburgh Improv. That's the end of January. And then I go to Boston for a few weeks, Boston, New York City. I'm at Laugh Boston. I'll be at the Comedy Cellar in New York City. Check out all my dates at eddieif.com and the big Australian tour starting mid-February. So all of my dates, I'll be in Adelaide, Sydney, Launceston. I'm doing the Launceston Comedy Festival, brand new. Come out and check out those dates. And if you're a fan of the show, you love the show, and you want to help out the show, you know the best way is to go to our Patreon. What happens there? You give $3 a month, you get to see these videos on the Patreon site. It'll give you a link, and you can watch every episode on video. And if you give $5, you can win a what's it called? What do you win? You win a Myopucks, one of the greatest inventions ever that I need to strap on me right now. And you win a Leopard Claw. Leopard Claw is the soft tissue multi-tool designed for versatile self-mobilization. It increases blood flow while breaking up restrictions in the tissues, ultimately helps you move better. Myopucks is a portable, affordable electronic muscle stimulation and TENS device. Myopucks increases blood flow, but most importantly, removes the waste to help you recover more efficiently. The Myopucks will also help decrease pain associated from overuse. When you use both together, it's a game changer, and that is true. I am going to get the Myopucks. I'm going to hit up my elbow, or not the Myopucks. I'm going to use the Leopard Claw on my elbow later, and then I'm fixing my shoulder with the Myopucks because I am a mess. And these things are great. We give out one every month, every week. We give one to our guest, and we give one to let's see, who's our winner this week. Our winner is Ben Cornelison. Ben, I hope I said your name right. Cornelison. Doesn't matter, Ben. You can't get mad at me. You just won $450 worth of shit. So even if I mispronounce your name wrong, you're not going to complain, are you? Well, Ben, Troy from Myopucks and Leopard Claw will be getting a hold of you, and we will be sending this out to you. Use the Thrive click-through on our website, wadcastpodcast.com. Donate to the Patreon and keep supporting the show. We appreciate it. Go to the Facebook, the new Instagram page. It's same name, Wadcast Podcast. But I'll take some good pictures today. I always forget. Mike, my guest here, is going to remind me to take some pictures of his gym where we are today. We're at CrossFit Pittsburgh, one of the OGs in CrossFit, and we're going to be getting this episode started right now. Welcome to the Wadcast Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Ift. I am here with Mike Pietragallo. Did I say it perfectly?
You said it perfectly. Nobody says it like that, though.
Pietragallo.
Yeah, most Americans leave out the I.
So do they really?
It becomes Pietragallo.
Keep this really close.
That's freaking me out a little bit.
I know. It's like a penis. You got to keep it right to your lips. Welcome. That's a great way to start the episode of the Wadcast Podcast. I'm Eddie Ift. I'm here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my hometown, where I grew up. Come back here to visit my parents, who are still living here in this rain. And when I am in Pittsburgh, there's a couple places I go. One of them that I always stop into is CrossFit Pittsburgh, the OG of CrossFit in Pittsburgh. How old now?
14.
14 years.
14 years.
What was the year you started then?
Wow, we started in 2004, just out of our home garage gym.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, we followed the plan the way it was laid out.
Oh, wow. And I have been with you through two incarnations, the one down next to the methadone clinic.
Correct.
And now the one in the neighborhood that used to be the most dangerous neighborhood in Pittsburgh.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I'm not kidding you. Like, I know it's not dangerous anymore as much. Still get a little bit element of crime, wouldn't you say?
A little bit, but
not much.
Pretty small.
I mean, because this seems like more of an industrial area now.
It is, exactly.
But it used to be, if anyone knows the movie Training Day, Antoine Fuqua, who was the director of that film, is from Pittsburgh. And I believe this is the neighborhood he's from. And I heard that he was able to film that movie in that really dangerous neighborhood of Los Angeles because he basically was a Crip. And I could have this totally wrong, but I heard he was a Crip, and from here, because I think this is the what used to be a Crip neighborhood.
I think so.
And he had the connections and was able to, out in L.A., be like, hey, yo, to all his Crip buddies, can we film in that neighborhood that's like a super dangerous neighborhood in L.A.? I forget what it's called, but it's like cops won't even go in there. And, but this is... before I get to Mike, you know me, I like to spout out a lot of shit. The Pittsburgh Marathon, I believe, runs through this neighborhood.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And I had a buddy run the Pittsburgh Marathon one year, and I went with him, to cheer him on. And he told me that they told them when you run through Homewood, don't take any water from anyone on the street, because one year someone was handing out vodka.
Oh.
and like people were grabbing cups off the table, and it wasn't water, it was vodka. Can you imagine being like 20 miles into a marathon and chugging, like taking a full mouth of vodka?
Well, I ran the Pittsburgh Marathon one time, and I think at the 18, 19, 20 mile mark, it might not have been bad.
Yeah,
might not have been.
People take aspirin a lot in marathons, and I had a plan to take when I did a couple of marathons. I had a plan to put it in my pocket, so like at like mile 20 or something, if I needed it, to take it, and I didn't bring it. It's probably a good thing. It's probably not good for you. But you've been here for how many years at this location now?
This is January 19. We start our 5th year in this location.
Okay. And the last place was such a cool place too, because this gym right here is everything a CrossFit gym should be, and more. Because I always say, you want to go into the gym, you want it to like be hard and tough, and it shouldn't be a foofy Globo gym. That's not where like when you watch Rocky, and I see you got a Rocky poster on the wall. Where did Rocky work out?
Oh yeah, Mix.
Yeah, and he's the best fighter in the world ever. You heard that, Tyson and Ali. Rocky was way better than all of you. And so you walk in. First of all, your building is pink.
It is. True story.
Can you explain that?
All right, so
I mean, it's a big pink building. I'll take a picture of it and post it.
It is very, very pink. Prior to us taking over this building, it was a bakery. It was an industrial bakery, and the owner, they had a very, very small storefront downstairs, but primarily they supplied Giant Eagle, a couple food chains here locally.
Can you please do it with a Pittsburgh accent?
I don't know.
Giant Eagle. Giant Eagle.
Anyway, they provided baked goods to Giant Eagles and whatnot.
They came in here, they made all the baked goods,
and they painted it pink because it being a bakery and all.
What's pink got to do with the damn bakery?
Well, it was actually pretty funny though. Downstairs, the exterior was just a bright pink, and then inside, I think they actually tried to make it look like a cake
because they were making muffins and shit in here.
The floor was like a pale yellow, and it had like sprinkles, on it, like paint chips.
Our listeners, by the way, have no idea what we're doing. We're doing the Pittsburgh accent, which, by the way, the only way they know it is because I make fun of Scott Panchek's dad, because Scott Panchek's dad has a really thick Pittsburgh accent, right. And sometimes they make videos with him, and he's like, "Hey, you guys gonna go out there and do? Yin's gonna what at right now?"
Well, interesting story too. In our first location, they were one of our first members.
The Pancheks.
The Pancheks were one of our first members, and I will never forget the day they came in. Scott was, I want to say, between his senior year in high school, freshman year in college, or maybe freshman year in college, going on to sophomore. And he played football at Mount Union.
Where is Mount Union?
I think it's in Ohio. I could be wrong. If I don't know, I typically say Ohio.
Okay.
So, and the twins, Saxon and Spencer, they were young. I mean, they were very young.
And they're
at
both
the time.
like good competitors now too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Two of them made the games, right?
Scott and one of the twins.
Okay.
Yeah. Boys, I love you, but I get the two of you confused. My wife's a twin, so it's a nightmare for me at home also.
I know. You can't you sleep with
I'm not even
your
sure.
wife and her sister all the time. That was terrible.
Yeah.
I watch myself.
But anyway, back to the paint scheme. So the inside was painted like to look like a cake, I guess. It was the floor was like a pale yellow with like these paint chips, and part of the wall, what you see down there now that's red, was a brighter pink than outside, and then the thin band that's black was a chocolate brown.
I think you should have kept it that way.
Well, I'll tell you, we looked at the building. We took over in January 5 years ago, and we committed to host a level 1 later that month.
Right.
So as I was bringing some of our trainers over, and I was like, "Hey, check this out. Look at this place. This is what we're going to do." And you kind of like rolling out your game plan. Every time we'd pull up to take a look. And we found the building around November, late November timeframe. So we had November, December to get it ready. We already committed to a level 1 course in January. Everybody that I brought in, they'd get out of the car, they'd look at the building. As soon as we'd walk through the doors, they'd be like, well, you're going to paint this, right? And, at that time, I'll tell you, I swear to God, at that time, I was like, oh, God, yeah, absolutely. As soon as the weather breaks, we're painting this.
As soon as the weather breaks, we were just talking about this yesterday about my wife and I were talking about how you paint here because Pittsburgh gets, I read it yesterday, 160 days of rain a year, rain or snow.
Right.
So you're taking a pretty big chance if you paint.
You're rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But what was funny was it didn't last. By the time we started to train here regularly, all of that, you're going to paint this, right? You're going to paint this, right? Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In less than 2 weeks being in the building, it did a 180, and people were like, man, you can't paint this building. You've got to leave it like this.
Yeah. I think it's great.
So we just said, oh, okay, great.
Can you put a big CrossFit sign up outside?
Probably.
I think you should do that because it makes it kind of funnier that you're pink and you're CrossFit. Like I think you should put the biggest CrossFit sign ever outside.
It is, it's non-threatening.
It's amazing.
Right?
Please don't ever paint it. Like it makes it. I drove by yesterday. We were going to Whole Foods up here because you're right around the corner from a Whole Foods, and my daughter was with me in the car, and I took a shortcut just so I knew how to get here because I've been going to your other gym. I'd been here a bunch of times, but I wanted to make sure like I knew the right way, and I thought, oh, I'll just drive down this way, so I know. I went past it, and my daughter goes, Dad, or she doesn't care that me. She's, Mom, look at the pink building.
Oh, funny.
She loves pink. And I go, yeah, that's the gym I'm going to tomorrow. I go, that's CrossFit Pittsburgh. So I just said that like a Pittsburgh. It's CrossFit Pittsburgh down there. So that's funny you had the pan checks here. I wanted to talk to you about that. So Pittsburgh is not notorious. It's famous for putting out a lot of amazing athletes. And I don't know if it does it as much as it used to do. Pittsburgh I know from back in the day, my dad's involved in football, and Pittsburgh, like this area, was a hotbed of famous quarterbacks, a lot of linemen. Football, this was the place because we had a lot of immigrants because of the steel mills. And they'd come over and they called them the hunkies. Right. Hungarians or what. I remember that word as I was a kid. It was like a racial slur. Sure. Like, hey, the hunkies over there left their ties out. They got their clothes drying in the front yard and that. The hunkies were big, like massive freaks, and they created these like amazing athletes. Well, more and more as the steel mills closed and this became Google, Google moved into Pittsburgh. Now it's like a tech capital. Right. Now you're getting little nerdy people. But there's still the remnants of like you pull up next to a red light. I one time my sister had a BMW convertible and I borrowed it once. Pulled up to a red light beside a pickup truck. Me and my buddy were coming home from a wedding, and my buddy's like, "Can I drive?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't give a shit. It's my sister's car. Let's crash it." And we're at a red light, and this guy just looks down from his pickup truck, just looks at us and goes, "Faggots." Jesus. And that's what I think of when I think of Pittsburgh like that. Like, hey. Yin's going down the parking lot. You gonna roast a pig? No. Well, you better bring a keg then. If you're not roasting a pig, you better bring a keg. So you would think that Pittsburgh would put out the craziest, toughest, best CrossFitters ever. And I don't know anyone that's come out of here other than Panchek, but they're not really here.
Yeah. Scott was one of the first. I mean, great athlete. That whole family. I mean, they're all, they're freakishly good athletes.
I'm surprised he hasn't done better than he has.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think too, and it's interesting dynamic. But I mean, the games have changed so much since we got involved in the first iteration, and all the way through. I remember one year, 2010 was the one and only year that they held sectionals. Because prior to the originals, it was almost like you just register and you're in. Yeah. And at the ranch, that type of thing. And so the first year, 2010, they did. There was prior to the Open. It was the year before the Open. They did sectionals, and I think ours was Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland, and it was hosted at CrossFit KOP.
Where's that?
Just outside Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah, King of Prussia, PA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny too because I remember one of our coaches was a really good athlete, Blake Schaub, and a really good guy, solid athlete. And So we were almost like, I kind of put myself in almost as like his sparring partner. You know, we'd train together. And
Right.
That was it. You
Right.
know, we'd train. And I had no intention
Right.
of competing. And we got a little bit closer. And I thought, you know what? I mean, you're in it. When I'm training with him. So, you know, I registered one night, and then we went in to train in the morning. You know, we linked up to train again. He's like, hey, man, I saw you registered. And I was like, yeah, we'll do it together. You know, that's that. And we did. And I think what was funny, though, what I remember was there was a downpour. It rained so hard. It was terrible. And rain was coming in sideways. And they had 3 workouts over the course of
Was it outside?
Only one. One was outside. But what they did was they had it under a highway overpass, thinking that would protect you from the rain. And I'll never forget that particular workout was it was an odd, like I think a 600. I think it started with like a 600-meter run.
Right.
And I'm like, who runs? You know, why 6? You know,
Yeah.
you're programmed for 4. You know, 600-meter run, and then an AMRAP in the time remaining of one arm kettlebell squat, overhead squats. You know,
Okay.
One arm kettlebell squats. If you brought the kettlebell down at any time below your head, you had a 200-meter penalty run.
Oh.
And so it was nasty. And what was kind of funny too was you were going in different heats, of course. So I remember getting ready to go, and you're watching other people come in, and I was older than most of the competitors.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, you know, it was one of the things that I never really bought into was, you know, people are coming in and other guys are going, hey, how was it? How was it? It sucks. You know what I mean? Look at them. They're cold. They're wet. You know. So I didn't even think about it. I was like, okay, you know. And then we're getting dressed to go out. And again, I thought about it. It's cold. It's wet. It's storming. And I'm thinking, well, anything you wear is just going to get wet.
Yeah.
So less is better, right? So I had forged. It was relatively new at the time as well. Forged clothing. So I had some, forged workout shorts, a T-shirt, and I put on like a ski cap.
Right.
You know, I'm thinking, hey, you know, minimize the heat loss, you know. And from the time we stepped out the door to walk to the workout area, we're soaking wet anyway.
Yeah.
So all the guys that thought they'd layer up with like sweatpants and sweatshirts, I'm like, better for me. You know, you add an extra 40 pounds, dumbass, you know. So it got so bad, though, during the WOD, the rain was coming in sideways. Oh. So, you know, and it was funny, too, because I guess like the head judge of that evolution, he's in like, if we look like the Gorton's fish stick guy, you know, he's like got his big, bib overalls, big rain
yellow
hat, you know. He's like, okay, 3, 2. I'm like, this is miserable, but you know what? It was just so much fun, a lot of fun. And I mean, again, contrasting then, I mean, I haven't ever made the games.
Right.
You know, I'm not sure that, and it's funny too. I remember it was actually, I heard this on one of your podcasts, and I'm sure it's an interesting dynamic. But you know, you get so many people who are like, hey, I'm going to try that CrossFit thing, and I'm going to the games. I'm like, well, you know what? Good, and I believe you because they sell tickets and everything. So you can do both.
I forget what town I was in where a kid said to me, he shook my hand before. You know, sometimes they make you greet everyone at the class, and he shook my hand and he said, where are you from? And I said, LA. And he said, okay. And he said, I think the next thing he said to me was, I'm going to the CrossFit Games this year. And I went, no, you're not. And he goes, he was stunned because I think he's told everyone he's met that.
Right.
And I think I was the first person to call him on his bull. I went, no, you're not. Like you're absolute. I can bet everything I have. I've never, like, if Vegas will take this bet, I'll put my daughter up. Like, I will bet my daughter.
How certain I am.
Like, you're not going in any capacity other than as a spectator. Like, there's no possible way. It is funny how many people think, and I just saw Glassman speak a month ago or so. And he was talking about it, and he was just saying, he's like, people need to understand that that's like not even CrossFit. That's a whole other world that is non-existent to the 99.9%. And he's like, whatever those guys are doing to get to where that's not even really CrossFit. It was funny how he kept saying it. It was like, it's such a different world.
Right.
And
I think that's one of the things that intrigued me so much back in the old days.
Someone knocking?
I don't know. Can I check?
There's all kinds of clicks and tings, and when we were started the show, I heard this noise. I'm like, is somebody jumping rope on the roof? And Mike took me downstairs, then through a room, then up like 2 flights of steps. So like we're on right above us is a boxing gym, So we went up there. There's turf, there's sleds, there's a boxing ring, there's guys jumping rope, and there's a whole other. I mean, he has everything in this gym. You've got a physical therapy center. You've got it. It's the perfect combination. It's got the rough like how a CrossFit gym should be, and then up here you have your offices. You have physical therapy. I looked around. You have every single thing that you could possibly have in a CrossFit gym, from weight vests to chains to stones to blocks to. You've got everything here.
Well, that because I'm going to the games. So,
where do you do your runs around the neighborhood? Is that scary?
You know what? It's not, because the one thing that I've always, I don't know. It's just I think what happens is, especially in all weather, I think you kind of set the crazy bar a little bit high.
Right.
So people will watch you, and whether you're doing a ruck or a sandbag or farmers carries, and I think sometimes there's this look of a little bit like disbelief, like what are you doing,
But I think I think from day one, and I'm not sure of this, but I think that was probably part of Glassman's concept of it, was a recruiting technique. Mm-hmm. If people see a parade of people running down the street together, they think, what are these people doing? Where are they coming from? And it's marketing.
Yeah,
and
very much so.
And especially if they see them carrying sandbags or a kettlebell or something, or the one I hate the most, carrying a plate overhead.
Yeah, that's ugly.
Brutal.
That's ugly.
But they see that and they go, "Hey, what is that? I want to do that. That looks tough, and I should go join up." So I think it's good for gyms to do it. But we've talked about on the show 1,000 times about how many gyms have had someone hit by a car because their run crosses. Because I know the gym where I started working out in LA had you come out of the parking lot and you have to cross the street. Mm-hmm. And we were very competitive for a while. Like everyone there was, you wanted to win every workout. Mm-hmm. And so you darted across that street. And I can't tell you how many times I watched people have to hurdle the hood of a car. And I just couldn't believe no one got hit.
Right.
And then we talked about it on the show one time. And we got so many people writing in saying, "Oh, someone got hit at our gym. Someone got hit at our gym. Someone fell over a wall. Someone this, someone that."
Right. Well, and you know what? I mean, this has been, and I paid the price for this. Believe me, all Catholic school, all through high school. So I took many a beating for laughing inappropriately.
Yeah.
But you got to give credit where credit is due. Sometimes a fall is
it's great,
especially if it's well done. You know what I mean? That's funny.
I'm doing a bit on stage right now about I got called into school because my 3-year-old daughter, she got me called into school already. The teacher said that she thinks farts are funny. And I was like, well, they are. And she's like, it's not funny, Miss Drift. I'm like, I go, yeah, I don't know why you called me in. You should have bumped my daughter up to kindergarten. She's a pretty smart kid. She's like, farts aren't funny, Miss Drift. I go, they're like, I'm a connoisseur of comedy. They're like number one on the list of funny. Right. And right below it is old ladies falling down a flight of steps. I go, it's wrong, but it's hilarious.
Exactly.
And I go, I don't know if you know about a thing called YouTube, but on YouTube, there's things called fails. People like to watch people get hurt. Oh, yeah. Farts are even above that. And so the reason she was upset, though, she said all the other kids are trying to make my daughter laugh. So my daughter created a sharding epidemic in the school.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. A sharding epidemic, she called it. Anyway, you're out there. You are environmentally conscious, but you're also a CrossFitter and you need lots of protein. You don't want to contribute to global warming and things like that. So stop using, cows are out there. They're making lots of methane. They're farting and they're sending all that methane gas up into the atmosphere. There's a new way. There's a new concept. Insect farming. Sounds a little unique, huh? Well, it's not that unique. It's been a global norm for centuries with over 80% of the world already eating insects in their daily diet. And now finally, there's a company called EXO, EXO. That's EXO. And they've created the next generation of sustainable, eco-friendly cricket snack foods that are good for you and good for the planet. It's a superfood in every way. Crickets offer massive nutrition while leaving a minimal environmental footprint. Make the choice to leave an impact on the world while fueling your body with premium nutrients. And if you're worried about taste, don't be. EXO's award-winning 3 Michelin-starred chef has made sure of that, creating what many are calling the tastiest and most nutritious bars for endurance athletes. Hear that? These are the tastiest and most nutritious. Their classic protein bars are made with real food, minimally processed, and nutrient dense. They're perfect for giving you the fuel to get through a workout. Dylan Farr, my buddy, is all about cricket protein now, and I don't know anyone who knows more about nutrition than him. Get a variety box now and try all the flavors like blueberry, vanilla, and banana bread at XO Protein. That's exoprotein.com. That's exoprotein.com. Use the discount code WODCAST for 15% savings. Join the XO movement today towards a healthier life and a healthier planet. That's exoprotein.com. 15% off with WODCAST. Do it now. All right? You heard me. Yeah, CrossFit. We all know CrossFit fails are some of the greatest videos ever. I mean, unbelievable. I love to see somebody kip and land on their back.
Oh, Lord. Yeah. Well, and you know what? Sometimes too, I mean, if we didn't live in the age we live in with, readily available video, on a push of a button, you'd miss half of that, but it still happened.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know, well, the whole concept of the KIP, and I'll never forget, it was a level 1 course that we had hosted, and John Gilson was one of the instructors.
Okay.
Old school,
Did he pass out from deadlifting?
No, not at not at ours. But what was interesting was, again, just a habit, I guess, if we put it to the community, how many times, when you grip a pull-up bar, thumbless or thumbed, what have you. And, I guess it's user preference oftentimes, that type of thing. And I remember he was adamant when he was teaching the KIP. He was like, you will not use a thumbless grip. And I'm like, oh, man, I can't make any promises,
Yeah.
But that was the whole logic, a thumbless grip, but you really start to push away that point where you really start to push away from the bar. You're going to get bodies in motion. They're going to launch.
I think I thumbless.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. But that was it, more apt to. And we had one of our first members, fortunately, I think that's the only redeeming part of it is, provided they don't get hurt, then you can really enjoy the laugh.
Yeah.
And this young lady, really good athlete, really fit. She's going and just stringing together some kipping pull-ups rather. And she had to step off a plyo box in order to get up, on the bar. And it just one of those things where she just happened to be slightly off center, and she's going. So not only does she push herself off the bar and lose her grip, but the box acts like the accomplice to the school bully, right?
Oh.
It catches her at the heels, throws her feet up in front of her, and she lands like on her traps, But what was crazy was you hear the thud, and I turn around to look, and I don't see anything because she's like behind the plyo box, right?
Right.
I'm like, what was that? And then you just kind of see this, head come up, and she was okay, but that was pretty funny.
Okay, you and I, being Pittsburghers, this is what we do. And I've done this with you before where when I come in to work out, we talk for 12 hours about we can shoot the shit for hours.
That's true.
So I'm going to jump all over the place, and I know people listening are like, get back to that. One of the things I wanted to get to is I have this weird thing about like why Pittsburgh doesn't have better athletes in CrossFit. And I'm not saying they're not, because I come in, and a lot of times have come into your gym and raw out, and they've got a great team, how to realize the athlete within. They make the games all the time as a team, but I go in and I've never been very good at CrossFit. I've always considered myself an average CrossFitter, but at times I can go into like a gym somewhere and be one of the like top guys in the class. But I get the shit kicked out of me in your classes. Like every single person finishes before me. Like there's a lot of rough, tough Pittsburghers. Like Pittsburgh's a rough town. Like people always say to me, I'm in California, and someone will talk back to me, and I'll be like, I'm going to punch you in the fucking face. And they're like, what? In California, they're like, you need a therapist. And I'm like, what the hell?
I punched him too.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'll fucking punch a therapist. Like that's the Pittsburgh mentality of like, my family grew up in Greenfield, and my uncle's a boxer. They're all like, Irish Catholic, like, fuck you, I'll punch you. And, you get out of your car when someone cuts you off, and, like people talk about California road rage, and you're like, yeah, go, he better shoot me, and I don't, because of that, I would think that Pittsburghers would come into CrossFit, look at it and be like, you want me to pick up that stone over there? What wall you want me to put it on? I'll make a whole. I'll make a wall of stones.
Right.
And it's full of like tough, and it just, and there's I noticed recently there's about 15 CrossFit gyms in Pittsburgh, and you've been around the longest. Where are these tough guys?
Again, it's interesting dynamic. We had within our own coaches membership base, that kind of thing. So back in 2010, like I said, we went to sectionals. Blake, our coach, and it was funny. Never want to look back as the old guy and go, "Oh, I could have, been something," But what was very frustrating for me was I think I decided to sign up maybe 72 hours prior,
right?
And the meanwhile, and that's for me, it's about attitude and training, 110%. Blake was training to compete.
Yeah,
I was training to get him ready to compete.
Yeah,
right, and I was probably in better shape than I had been in prior.
Right.
But up here, it wasn't.
You're also a bigger guy. Like CrossFitters are like 185, 190.
Yeah. Oh, I passed that benchmark in junior high.
Yeah. Yeah. And your background's rugby?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rugby. Well, in high school, I started off, I was a wrestler in high school. And then I got into boxing and martial arts in college. But it was always,
I know you went to Central Catholic, which is the same school my dad. And Central Catholic is a famous Pittsburgh school. Great football. Dan Marino came out of there. Who else? Some other great football players.
Just a wave of younger guys who I don't know, but college players. There's so many more D1 players out of Central Catholic.
Yeah, it's an amazing football school. It's right in the center of Pittsburgh. Yeah. It's the Catholic school. You can come from all over and go there. Right. So they have an ability to recruit. But Dan Marino was the guy, who came out of there and was just phenomenal.
And what was amazing was he was 2 years ahead of me.
So really?
To be able to watch him, I was a freshman and watch him play high school ball as a junior. And you knew right then. You're like, yeah. Like I'm going to the games. Yeah, this guy's going to the NFL.
Well, I knew. I knew. I was a little kid, and you knew about this high school football player that was the best in the country.
And then to watch him at Pitt, from this freshman,
he was
year.
Also an amazing baseball player. He was. He was picking, I believe, between Stanford and Pitt, because he was going to play baseball at Stanford, but he got drafted too to play baseball.
Right.
And
Kansas City Royals.
Yeah. And he decided to go football.
Yeah.
Who
and
knows
it's
what
just a great athlete and a good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know. I don't know that that's exclusively a Pittsburgh thing, but when you say like, hey, this guy? Yeah. How is that? It's a good guy.
I was trying to explain to my wife, Pittsburgh. I said, everybody's really rough at the start. Mm. Like they look at you like they're going to fight you, but they're the guy that will fix your car for you, fix your plumbing, carry you home, check on your mom for you,
right?
Be at your funeral. They're the best people. But up front, if you give them a weird look, they're going to punch you in the face.
More than likely. More than likely. But it's just a kind of interesting dynamic though, because Blake made regionals that year, and we had another group. They were younger, and this was kind of a cool thing too. Most of them became coaches for us and members at our box when they were students, though, at the University of Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
They started Panther CrossFit,
yes,
and a college affiliate.
Right.
And so a couple of them competed in sectionals that year.
Okay.
A couple of them advanced, to the regionals. That was, a little bit later on in Ohio. And it was nice because we'd always cross paths, when we would see them at these venues and things like that. And no one from that group, no one from our immediate group advanced further than that year. So then as the Pitt guys started to, got a year or two older, graduated, and then they came to train with us and coach for us. And then that's one of the first times you and I met, if you recall. One of those athletes from Panther, in fact, he was the founder of the Panther affiliate, Zach Miller. Exactly. So for those of you who don't know, there's a great, CrossFit Media did a great video on it. I'll take maybe a minute here to talk about this because, I don't think he'll bring it up. But we had a coach, a dear friend of ours, and involved in a really bad auto accident when he was on his way into coach one evening. Road construction on 279, and just bad luck. And he's in a vehicle rollover and suffered a severe brain trauma. So, at the time, of course, as communities, everybody rallies together and what can we do to help and things like this. And prior to that, I think you had dropped in a few times when you were home.
Yeah.
And this was Christmas.
He was a beast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Well, in fact, he had already competed that year. He made regionals. We had a team, I think that was 2011. We had a team go to regionals, and Zach went as an individual. So that was actually for us. That was very, very cool to have an individual make it, at advance, and then send a team as well. It was after that, and I remember vividly, he was still in extended care, and not a little bit of a touch and go at the time, and it was around Christmas time. And I remember you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, let me run something by you." And I talked to my folks at the Improv, and the one over in the waterfront.
Yeah,
I think it was right. Yeah. And you said, and I think it was like either the day after Christmas or the day after that, but it was like December 26th. You're like, "Hey, they've agreed to give us the venue. I'm going to do a show for Zach."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, so I never forgot that, brother.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. That was, it was a pretty touching thing to see what happened to him and what his family was going through. So, very, very sad. And it's funny. There's not much I can do for people, but that's one thing I can do is like I can do shows and help people out. So anytime I'm in your town, if you need something like that, I can always donate. I have one ability in life, and that's to talk. So if I can make people laugh and raise some money, let me know, and I'll do it because I'm a pretty shitty person, and that helps me absolve some of my bad karma. And I do have a little soft spot for people in need. So,
well, that was great. Thank you.
Oh, anytime.
But anyways, like to wrap up that the big question about. So I think what happens is over the years we've had a few of our coaches, few of our athletes show that impetus to go, hey, and especially with the Open, right? I thought the concept of the Open was pretty interesting, and I get it. There are people who are going to compete in the Open simply to compete with everybody else because they can,
right.
And they probably realize like, hey, man, I'm not going beyond this, but you're still involved.
Right. I used to shit on the Open, but I think it's a really good thing now. And here's why. I used to shit on it because I thought they're taking your money and you have no chance of going to the games, but they're not taking your money. You're paying to compete it's just like going to a 10K or a 5K or whatever you're doing. You're paying to compete against, even though you're never going to be in the games or regionals or whatever, you're paying to compete on that level right there.
Right.
My thing is I'd rather the money go to the affiliate than to the Death Star. I just think they're getting enough money and to run a website that, I don't want to get into it. I just think do the Open in your own gym, but people do want to compete and be on this website and look how they want to see that they were 11,433rd in the world.
Yeah. And what was funny too was in the beginning in 2011, 2012, I say in the beginning, like biblical, but not that far back. But what was fun was, for me anyway, to watch some of our people and they'll be like, "Hey, I'm 17th." And I'm like, that's because it just opened an hour ago.
I know.
Right? If you were the first guy, you'd be number one.
That's why.
At least for a minute.
I pitched a TV show one time years ago where it was Gym Class Superstar. And I was this guy that was like an average athlete at best. But I believed that I was the greatest all-around athlete in the world. Like if I competed in every single event in the world, I would prove that I was the number one athlete. It's kind of like CrossFit, Right. It's a combination of all these different things. And so I was going to go to like the Boston Marathon and all the US Open and people were like, "Well, how are you going to get into this?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not." Like like you can go to a US Open qualifier. So I'd go to a US Open qualifier, or I'd go to an NFL tryout, like they have these random tryout, or I'd go, and that's the joke of it. It's that I'm just horrible. So I'd go to the Boston Marathon and I would sneak up to the front and sprint out and just sprint the beginning of the race and then die after like 100 meters.
Right.
But I'd be like, "Did you see me? I was winning for part of the race. I was winning." And it was like, you ran, you were sprinting and then you stopped.
Exactly.
You quit
for that moment.
You quit after mile 1. And I was like, "Yeah, but I was in the lead. I was beating the Kenyans."
Exactly. So, well, and until they get to mile 20 in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then they're all loaded up on vodka and they're done.
Yeah, that's true. So let's go back to how did you bring CrossFit to Pittsburgh? You were very first one. You started in your garage. How did that happen?
Okay. 2004, I was deployed to Baghdad. And
I didn't want to get into that because every time I've ever asked you about your military background, you look at me like you're the guy that killed Saddam Hussein or Osama bin Laden, and you always go to me, I can't talk about it. And then one time you told me that I could talk about it. Oh, you said I can tell you something.
Yeah, it was probably the closest. I don't know, maybe like one of the closer parallels. You know, at that point. But so I was deployed to Baghdad. And it was odd, 2004. So I just turned 41. And
you've been in the military your whole life?
No, I was in the military out of college.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's a funny story or not. To me, it wasn't funny, but round about freshman and sophomore year in college, I decided, and this was a long time ago, right? 81, 82. Okay, so there was no internet. Unless you're from a military town, you only know what you might read in books, and there's no Amazon to surf for books and things like this. But I decided, and I do not come from a military family. My father served in Korea, and later on in life, he would tell me when I chose the military path, I was like, Dad, you did it. He looked right at me. He goes, Jesus Christ, champ, I was drafted, right? Like, so don't compare, and I can't explain it other than, and I believe this with all my heart, you're drawn to something, every so often. We'll call it whatever, a calling or what have you. But I just got this strong pull to the Navy. And again, I say.
So this is after college?
Right.
Where'd you go to college?
Pitt, University of Pittsburgh.
I didn't know. Okay. Central and then Pitt.
And, excuse me. So, for me, and again, I always stress the time frame because bear in mind, there were no movies about these guys. There were no, internet that you could Google or anything like that. I decided I want to be a Navy SEAL. And I just thought, you know what? And maybe part of that driving factor was back then, they were the least known about, right? And that was the intrigue for me. And, had occasion to run into a former SEAL at a gym that I was training at and, picked his brain a little bit. And he was like, what made you decide to do that? And, I was like, I don't know. I can't tell you. I feel, the draw to it. And so long story short, after college, I tested and processed. And I think the downside is, the way the military was and will be is you can ask for what you want. Yeah. And they're going to put you where they need you. And you can take it or leave it. So at the time, I tested for buds, trying to apply through officer programs. I didn't even realize that. I'm thinking, well, hey, I have a college degree. The officer recruiter's telling me this is the route I should take. In hindsight, had I enlisted, different pathway altogether. Right?
It's easier though, right? As an enlisted man.
Well, it's easier to try to get there. Yeah. To try to get to and numbers, right? There are more enlisted billets than there are officer billets. But then you still have to complete the program. Right. Getting there is a little bit of it, right? So, but again, I'm listening to a recruiter thinking, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. And no disrespect to anybody. Everybody has a job, but this guy was a surface warfare officer. And as I recall, he was on his way out. So his last assignment was recruiting, and he needs to fill slots, right? Right. And so he's like, we'll work on this and we'll try that. And so the way it worked at the time, I imagine it's still the same. You could reapply every 6 months. If you got rejected, you could reapply in a 6-month window. So I'm training, and I tested, written test, physical test, all this. I'm doing well. I apply, package comes back rejected. I was like, okay. And he's like, well, now from what I'm hearing, that's not uncommon because there are very few officer billets available. And I said, what are my options? He's like, well, you could look at something else. And I'm like, no. I'm like, what are my options to retest? Like, how do I get to buds? And he's like, well, you could retest in 6 months. So 18 months later, 3 phases. I tested for this 3 times over the course of every 6 months for 18 months. Passed every time. My numbers were getting better. I started out strong and I got better.
What kind of test was it?
Written test was pretty standard. The physical, looking back at the physical entrance, it wasn't all that bad. It was 500-meter run, 500-meter swim, side stroke or breaststroke only. Then you had like maybe 10 minutes, I think it was, to put on long pants and boots. So you had to run in like fatigues and boots. 10 minutes to do that. And then you had like a 2-minute interval to do max push-ups, 2-minute interval to do max sit-ups, 2-minute interval for max pull-ups, 10-minute break, and then you finished up with a run, 1.5 mile run in the fatigues and boots. Right. So, my times were, they started out good and only got better, and still, nothing. And I'm thinking, man, is it me? Like, is it? And again, fiscal billet availability, that type of thing. And I'm not sure 100% that my recruiter was really knowledgeable about, how to do this. So I remember I was at work one day and he gives me a call and he said, "Hey, I have an idea." And I'm thinking, again, I'm like wide-eyed. I don't know, what to think or what to ask even. And he said, okay, he's like, "Here's the deal. The Navy needs aviators faster than they can get them." I was like, okay, I don't care. Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but that was the furthest, never thought about, right?
Right.
And I said, so I'm not really following. He's like, all right, hear me out. He said, right now, there's a 6-month backlog from the time you complete Aviation Officer Candidate School. It was a program, unique program to itself way back when. It was exclusively for officer candidates, aviation officer candidates, right? And I guess it was harder than regular OCS and Marine Corps drill instructors, and kind of like the movie An Officer and a Gentleman, but without Deborah Winger, And so I said, okay, I'm still not tracking. He was like, well, you go through the program, you get your commission. He's like, right now you're trying to apply to a very small community as a civilian, contingent on your acceptance and your graduation from OCS and blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah. He's like, well, you go through AOCS, Aviation Officer Candidate School. And this is he's painting this picture for me, right? If you get through it, there's a 6-month backlog before you start flight training. During that time, because we're a large district, you come back here, you work out of the recruiting office doing college visits and so forth. But the first day you come back, we initiate what's called a designator change request. So now you're a naval officer, you need to have a job. We apply for buds at that time. It's a higher likelihood you'll be given a re-exam, like test and go. And I'm like, man, that's fantastic. And I said, so, we could do that? Oh, they do designator changes all the time. It's great. So I sign on the dotted line, I swear in and everything. Now I go to Pensacola and I'm with guys that are like, man, if I couldn't fly, I don't know what I would do. And I was like, I'm going to buds,
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I made a lot of good friends.
So what did you end up becoming?
I was an aviator. Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, strange.
So you fly?
No, I haven't in quite a long time.
But you did?
I did.
So what did you fly? What kind of?
A6 Intruders.
What's an A6 Intruder?
A6 Intruder is a carrier base. No longer exists. That's how old I am,
okay.
Right? They decommissioned the last squadrons maybe 5 years ago, but it was a 2-seat, side-by-side, all-weather, carrier-based medium attack bomber.
Wow.
Yeah, so you would launch off carriers. And kind of the funny story, this was old Vietnam-era aircraft. And it's not supersonic, not bulletproof, no guns, no defensive capabilities. Just bombs.
Wow.
That was it. And the best defense that we had was we were able to fly very, very low and in all weather. So, hard to see, hard to find, that type of thing.
Did you enjoy flying?
What was funny was I had no desire to whatsoever.
So you don't want to do it now at all or anything?
Well, you know what? I just haven't. It's odd, all right? Not wanting to go down that road in the first place.
Right.
But then I think you realize, you're like, all right, stop right here. You know what I mean? You've been given an opportunity that guys would give their left nut for.
Right.
Right. And the fact that you've, and again, I still felt the draw to special warfare. That was kind of like where I thought I belonged. And I don't say, I didn't belong in aviation, but honestly, I will tell you, I don't think I fit in. I really don't. I noticed
you didn't take your shirt off and play volleyball and drive around on a Ninja?
No. You know what? I was the guy when everybody else was doing that. Like I was going on trail runs and, trying to when can I get the buds?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, like the games, right? I'm going. Yeah. You might want to drive by. They'll let you tour.
I think I had this dream of going to buds. I remember my cousin is a captain right now in the Navy SEALs. And I remember I talked to him about it. Because I wanted to drop out of college at one point. I was just like, this sucks. What am I doing? I don't belong here. I have no interest in this. I'm bored. And I went and saw a recruiter. And it was just purely like I had talked to my cousin and that seemed exciting. And that was like a life I wanted, just excitement. I didn't feel this like need to take care of my country. It wasn't patriotism. It wasn't I was drawn by adventure. I was like, oh, this is going to be like crazy and like it was all the wrong reasons. I wanted to be able to walk into a bar and be like, hey, ladies, hey, you know who I am? This guy is right here. And so I remember I went and talked to a guy and they asked me all these questions. They said, how's your eyesight? I have horrible eyesight. And the guy said, don't worry about that. I said, I just want to go. And I had heard better to go enlisted. So I I hadn't finished college yet, and the guy said, well, this is good. You'll go and listen. And I said, my eyesight's horrible. And he said, oh, don't worry. They'll give you prescription glasses. And then I said, what about swimming? And you get a prescription goggles and blah, blah, blah. And then I talked to my cousin at like a family party. He's like, they're fucking lying to you. He's like, they're lying. They just want to get you in. And then you're going to go, when do I get to go to Buds? And they're like, you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't, Mr. Magoo. You and your blindness can go in that office right over there and start working on the computer.
And I mean, I think what I remember vividly, right? So, and it wasn't easy. That was the crazy part. It wasn't like, oh, I wanted to do this, but they gave me this easy route instead. I mean, it was hard.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, like academically was challenging, physically was challenging. And this was in the commissioning source. This was in AOCS. But one of the things I remember vividly was I was always very comfortable in the water. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just grew up, or not. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so
swimming in the Mon, right. Down the Allegheny.
But always in the water from the time I was really little, and very comfort. And that's it. I mean, your proficiency will come with practice, but your comfort level.
So funny. People say to me all the time, like, "Wait a minute, you surf a lot? Like, you're from Pittsburgh?" And I'm like, they're like, "How do you surf?" I'm like, do you know what it's like jumping off the 40th Street Bridge and having you're having a barge coming at you and two drunks in a fucking boat with there was so much. You're always, I don't know why, you're always swimming in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It was a part of life.
And you're either comfortable in the water or you're not. I think is a huge thing. But
you're always getting wrestled by your cousins that are bigger than you and drowning you.
Yeah.
It's an ugly environment.
And I remember vividly, there was two phases, the water and boxing. Boxing was a huge part of the program. And that goes way back. I mean, I learned a little bit the history of like, why are we doing this, So for me, I mean, I boxed Golden Gloves in college. So I was like, hey, you know what? The two times that nobody's going to bother me, right? We're in the water or in the ring. Yeah. So we do those evolutions. I was like, oh, thank God.
You did a lot of boxing at the Navy?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, more in college,
okay.
But, less in the Navy. But, it was something that, I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy getting hit, but I enjoyed the preparation for it. I enjoyed the sport, the challenge of it.
Did you play rugby when you were at Pitt?
No, I didn't. I started rugby when I was 45 years old. Yeah, honest to God. And I'll tell you this, it wasn't with, and I mean, again, I keep saying no disrespect. I'm going to say it one last time, and then we'll push this forward for the rest of the podcast, right? No disrespect intended. If you take it that way, that's your problem. But this wasn't like a Sunday, flag rugby old men's league, right? I had come home from another deployment, and a local rugby club, the Pittsburgh Harlequins, men's Division I club here in Pittsburgh, great club. Their captain at the time had CrossFitted when he lived in Southern California. Mm-hmm. So as preseason conditioning, he found our box, and they came in as a team and trained for preseason. So I had just come home from deployment, and they had one session left before their spring season started. Rugby will play spring and fall. So they had one session left, and I was there. I was down at the workout with them. And so my wife and two of our coaches had been training them for weeks. So it was the last night, and they, hey, thanks so much. You guys got to come to some of our games. And they gave shirts, T-shirts, club T-shirts to the three coaches, my wife and the other two coaches. And one of the guys was like, hey, he goes, your wife said you played rugby in college. And I was like, well, I said, for a summer session, I went to a couple weeks of practices. I said, but I never ended up playing. I said, and tell you the truth, I don't know why. And it was a different club. It was a different club. Right. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I was like, it didn't click, or maybe it was the wrong time or what have you. So they're like, hey, you should really come out and practice with us. Yeah, just have a run with us. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. Okay. So they go off to their season, their spring season, and I'm just staying at the gym, playing, catching up with my kids, Mm-hmm. And so we did go to one of their games, and they've got a beautiful facility out in Cheswick. I mean, it's beautiful, right? A big clubhouse.
I remember Cheswick. That's where Chessie,
the purple elephant.
The purple elephant. Chessie, come down to Cheswick. Cheswick
pools
and patios. Right across from the Ches Arena.
You know what the Ches Arena is now?
The Ches Arena where I used to do the hokey pokey.
Right. It's rubble. They tore it down. They tore down the chess arena. Yeah.
I used to go to all the chess arena was this roller skating rink, and we had roller skating parties. And they'd be like, the next skate is an all skate. The next ladies' choice.
The floor.
It's ladies' choice. They're the guy that is the DJ at the chess arena grows up to become a DJ at a strip club. I think that's the progression. And you've got this guy who he's like on the mic and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, the next skate is an all skate. You always wanted the all skates. And then when they would do the lady choices, my buddy Joe Matarese has a funny joke. He goes, that's when all the hot girls go to the bathroom.
Really?
You're sitting there and some girl is like, want to skate? I can skate backwards.
Why don't you do that then?
Yeah, but they do the limbo.
Right.
You would do the limbo where you roller skate under a bar and, you had the orange stopper on the front of your skates.
Oh, yeah.
And so we would go to this thing, but the commercials were right across the street from the Chess Arena was the Cheswick Pools and Patio. And they had it was an elephant?
Purple elephant. Yeah.
Purple elephant in the front named Chessie. And they used to do radio commercials in Pittsburgh. There was a song.
Cheswick Pools and Patios, where Chessie lives.
Right. Where
why do I remember that? That's crazy.
Because it's like you only had like 3 radio stations. It was ingrained in your head.
Yeah.
Chessie.
So that was just so much fun there.
God. So that's where they play rugby.
Yeah, they've got a beautiful facility. So we go out on a Saturday, and it was like the worst of all times, right? Because it's a beautiful sunny day, blue skies, that fresh grass smell, cut grass, and it was a great and welcoming environment, very family friendly, So we're watching this game, and I'm looking, and my wife's like, "Oh God," and I was like, "You know what? I think I can do this," And she's like, "Oh, whatever, dude, just suit yourself, right?" So after the game, the guys are coming over. Everybody's saying hello, thanks for coming, and all this. And so one of the guys says, "Hey, you really ought to come out, practice Tuesday and Thursday, games on Saturday." I said, "It sounds great." I said, "I'd really like to give it a try. Thank you." And it is social. Like they'll invite you out for a practice. Doesn't mean you're going to play. You know. So I said, "All right, great." Well, a couple of the players stayed with us to train during the season. So now that's Saturday. So Sunday we're home doing things with the family. Monday we go to the gym. One of the players comes in to work out Monday night. He's all excited because he's like in his 20s, so he remembers shit better than I do, right? He's like, "Hey, you're going to come practice with us tomorrow, right?" And I was like, "You know what?" I said, "No, the fatal flaw was I did not get to my wife first." I said, "You know what? I talked about it with Jen. There's a lot to do around the gym, and I've been gone for months, on deployment and whatnot. Well, I don't know it, but she's walking up behind me, right? So this kid, all bright-eyed and 20-something, he goes, "Hey, Jen." Yeah, he looks around me. "Hey, Jen, can Mike come to practice with us tomorrow?" And I'm like, so I turn around and I see, and she just goes, "Sure." Now I'm like, oh man, okay.
Did you go?
I did. So I look at him.
How many games do you play?
I played for a few years.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. And I'll tell you
What position?
This. I was a flanker, number 7, outside,
Flanker.
open side flanker. Yeah.
Did you get hurt a lot?
Oh yeah, yeah. But you know what? No, look. Here's the good news. It was superficial because as a forward, particularly as a number 7, and I didn't understand the game. I didn't even know. You know what I mean? I didn't really understand the.
What were you guys
game.
playing? NRL, Aussie rules, or Union?
Union.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that for those of you that are listening that don't know, I don't know it very well, but because of living in Australia a lot, I've watched a lot of rugby. Union is the one that's played more in England. Mm-hmm. And more in the private schools in Australia, if I'm correct. And it's the one where they scrum and they also pick the guy up off the ground to go get the ball really high in the air. And so NRL is the one they throw the ball down the line. It's a little more like gridiron, like American football. And then AFL is the one where they kick the ball more in a circle field, and it's kicking a lot for the goalposts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in rugby, the only thing you're not allowed to do, it's like soccer, but you can pick it up and run with it.
Right.
You can kick it anytime you want.
Mm-hmm.
No blocking, that type of thing. No contact unless the guy has the ball. Right. And no forward passing, really, are the big differences. So based on soccer, that type of thing, there are 15 men on a side, 8 forwards, and the remainder, they got 7 in the backfield.
Yeah.
And so, it was just, for me, I mean, I enjoyed the camaraderie. I think that was the craziest part. And I did tell that to my wife. I was like, and strangely enough, and I said,
wow, you were doing something that a lot of CrossFitters don't do, and that is CrossFit to use it to play a sport.
Oh yeah, very much
wow.
so. Well, but
what a novel idea.
But I said this from the beginning, and I still hold by it. I think CrossFit was the only reason I was able to play that sport at that age.
Oh yeah.
And the downside, but I remedied that too. I wish I had this then, but recovery. Recovery was the hard part because I didn't recover right at 45. I didn't recover like
I'm in that age right now, and I haven't been working out a lot lately because I've been traveling so much, and I got food poisoning.
Oh geez.
A couple of weeks ago I was in Reno. I was working at I don't want to say the name of the place. It rhymes with Bilver Pegasi Tocino. And I ate at the diner there and had romaine lettuce. Yeah. Who needs keto when you have E. coli? I lost about 10 pounds, and it was awful. I had to take Pedialyte. I was puking and shitting. It was like my stomach was sending everything out, and it was going, give me a hole to just throw shit out of. Anything that's in is getting out of here as quickly as possible. So things like that, like they constantly, like things like that where I would have recovered a day later. I was supposed to go skiing the next day, and I woke up and I called my buddy, and I was like, he's a really good skier, like Squaw Valley extreme skier dude. And I was like, dude, there's no way I'm going with you because I'm not 100%. I'm like 30% and I can hurt myself really badly. And I feel like that now with like recovery of everything, like a sickness, a cold. And people don't understand that the guys that used to be on the show with me used to make fun of me all the time. And they were like 10 and 20 years younger than me. And I'm like, guys, you don't understand. It's all about like staying healthy. And so I need to get back in the gym because I was surfing the other day and I'm so sore from surfing on, it's now Friday?
Right.
It's Friday. I surfed on, I think Monday, and I'm still sore because I hadn't surfed in a month. And I went out and it was really big, and I'm paddling for these like really big waves. And I'm like, but when I was CrossFitting all the time, I was sore from CrossFit, but it would make surfing much easier. And I need to stay in the gym, like no matter what, 3 days a week to keep that, that pain away from being out of shape. Like, and I keep telling my wife, I'm like, when we get back and I'm done with all this touring, it's 3 days a week of CrossFit, 3 days a week of yoga.
Yeah.
I have to keep the yoga going and keep the flexibility, stability, all that shit. But I wanted to get to, but like we've been on a lot, but I want to keep going. And you had a career after the military, right? With security. And can we talk about that at all?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What kind of stuff did you do?
Well, I was a government contractor.
Okay.
And, a lot of agencies, I wouldn't say like after 9/11, but...
Was this like Blackwater?
No, okay. No, it was not. It was not Blackwater. But a lot of agencies went to contract route because of the just a sheer number demand.
Sure.
Right. And so I was really, really fortunate. I got on a project. It was a State Department sponsored program. And I worked in Israel for 2 years.
Okay.
I lived in Tel Aviv. I worked right out of the embassy there, and it was a fantastic project. And I think too, the project was what it was because of the teammates that I had there. It was a great group of guys.
So you're doing protection.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so we get there
because I want to say that I would come into the gym and you wouldn't be here, and I'd be like, "Where's Mike?" And they're like, "He's out." And I'm like, "Where?" And they're like, "Can't say." And then you would come back and I'd be like, "Where were you?" And you're like, "Can't tell you." And it was always like cloak and dagger. And I used to joke with you. I'm like, "What are you? Are you CIA? What are you? You won't tell me. What?" I go, "Are you an assassin? You're some kind of secret thing." But now you can talk about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I
remember you told me when the Benghazi movie came out, you're like, "That's kind of what I do."
Yeah. Well, and interestingly enough, and again, things that you're just like right place at the right time, The State Department project I was on in Israel, we were getting ready to go on a mission, and there was a courtyard out on the back side of the embassy where we'd bring our vehicles up and load our equipment. So we're State Department sponsored. There's another group in the embassy for another government agency. So we're walking out with our gear. They're coming back from a mission, so they're coming in, and all of a sudden the door opens, and there's this guy walking through the door. He looks like a refrigerator with a head on it, right? So we're, give him a friendly, nod, and he nods back. And then we get about this close, and he stops dead in his tracks. He looks down, he goes, "Mike!" And I'm looking up at him, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like picture this guy, maybe 5 years ago and a lot leaner, smaller. When I knew this guy, we worked a very short period of time between the Navy and government contracting, worked in the private sector. And he was a young Marine right off active duty, very lean and smaller, and this and this. So now he's working for an agency also in Tel Aviv. And, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, we're getting ready to go out." So we exchanged numbers real quick. And, "Hey, call me when you get back." "All right, great." So I called him when I got back. He invited me over to their, we were there so long, we had a beautiful apartment like 2 blocks inland. They did more frequent rotations, so they stayed in a hotel right next to the embassy. So we go over, and I'm in their team room, and he's introducing me to his team leader, his program manager, all this kind of stuff. So long story short, and oftentimes, that's how this works, "Hey, Danny tells me you're a good guy." And I was like, "Well, hey, thanks. That's nice to hear." He's like, "You'd be interested in working with us?" And I was like, "Yes, I would." So, that was that. So, you put your paperwork together, you submit, your package, as it's called. And I was really lucky, I got picked up by that program. And, it was interesting too at the time.
Who was the guy? How'd you know the guy?
He worked for this private company out of Northern Virginia.
Okay.
And we did, I would say in hindsight, like gingerbread kind of stuff.
So when you lived in Israel for 2 years, were you coming back and forth, or?
Wow. For 2 years, I think I was home a month or two.
And where was the wife?
Here in the States.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough.
Yeah, it was. And I'll tell you the hard part about it too, is it was very, very tempting. But it was a beautiful environment. Tel Aviv, oh my God, it's beautiful. It's a beach environment. It's like South Beach. It's like South Beach. But the downside, at the time we were there, the Intifada was still underway. A lot of random suicide bombings, things like this. And I mean, right outside your front door type of thing. And so it was misleading. You have like beautiful shopping malls and movie theaters and restaurants. And we lived in this neighborhood that was it was pretty badass. We were in a 4-story building. We had the top 2 floors, like a rooftop, beautiful marble patio. And there were 2 apartments per floor. So the guy that lived on the top floor beside us, he owned a shop that was our ground floor. So it was one of those like roll up fronts, and every night there was an older gentleman lived right under us, and he and the shopkeeper would sit out front, play chess, and this kind of thing. And, everybody knows you and this and that. And, but at the same time, you start to think, you're like, yeah, but a block over, there was a, right by the embassy, right next door to the embassy, it was Mike's Place. It was a bar and restaurant. And, this was within maybe our first year there. It was Friday night, and I was always a little bit, I don't know, different. Like I'd get up early, like maybe 4:30, and I'd have my coffee and go for my first workouts, of the day.
Were you doing CrossFit there?
No,
Okay.
I didn't even know about it then.
Oh, this was before.
Yeah, just making stuff up, I guess, really. And I remember once one of my teammates was like, "Man," he goes, how in the world do you get up that early and go work out?" And like, real matter of fact, I looked at him and I'm like, "Because I go to bed at 7:30.
Yeah,
how do you do it? So I remember it was a Friday, and one of my teammates calls me up, and he's like, "Hey, man, wake your ass up." He's like, "We're going to Mike's Place." And I was like, "Oh, brother, I'm beat. It's Friday night. We've been going hard all week." I'm like, "I'm beat." He goes, "Oh, come on, just meet us at Mike's." I was like, "All right, I'll tell you what, I'll be there." So I kind of shake it off a little bit, and I'm watching TV, and I doze off again. Right. Next thing you know, my phone rings, and now I'm kind of like, I don't want to be chastised, right?
Yeah.
So it's another teammate. He's like, "Hey, where are you?" I'm like, "I'm at the house." He's like, "Who's there with you?" I'm like, "What are you, my mom? Like, who's there with me?" He means who's, any of the guys. Right. I was like, "I don't think anybody's here." He's like, "Well, do a head count fast." So I check all the bedrooms. Nobody's there, right? I was like, "No, it's just me." He's like, "Stay there." He's like, "Mike's Place has just been blown up."
Oh my God.
And I'm like, "Oh, Jesus." Right. So now I know that he wasn't there, right? Because he's on the phone with me, but I don't know where my other 2 teammates are, and I'm like, before I hang up, I go, "Jim, I got a call from Mark." I said, he said, we, like the team, we're meeting at Mike's. He's like, "All right." He's like, "I'll try to." So anyway, long story short, we get everybody. They weren't there.
No one was.
But, that's how fast it happens.
Yeah.
So that was my big thing is like, the family, should we bring them? Should I get it?
Yeah.
That scared me to death.
Yeah.
I thought, now if anything happens, it's going to happen to me only.
Yeah. I can't imagine that. And, but I mean, that's America now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we're in that. So what's going on with the gym now? What do you guys doing here? I saw you're doing an L1 cert here again soon.
We are. We've been really, really fortunate, and I think because of where we're located, not just within the city, but proximity-wise, close enough to Ohio, close enough to West Virginia, and the airport's not far from here. We've been hosting a few L1s, and we did a couple L2s. So
do you have your L2 then?
Mine's not current.
Okay.
No, mine's not current. But shame on me.
Yeah.
But
oh well.
Right.
You got it before?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well then.
Yeah. But it's good. It's all good.
Who teaches? Who usually comes and teach? Different people.
Different people, and that I tell you what. Again, having been around from the start, it's been amazing to watch that evolution.
The progression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now, they're different. Everybody brings their own unique personality to it, but the curriculum is tight and it's consistent.
Yeah.
Way back when, and again, it's a trade-off. I know when we got our L1, Greg Glassman used to do them himself, and they were months in between. Now there are multiple L1s.
Where'd you take your L1?
At CrossFit Boston.
Oh wow!
Yeah, CrossFit Boston, and it was great. And looking back, there's a photo of it downstairs of a group.
You never told me how you found CrossFit.
Oh yeah, so we're in Baghdad, right? Yeah. And 41 years old. And I'm sitting across from one of my teammates at lunch. We're in a little dining facility there. And I'm complaining about my workouts. And I said, man, I got to tell you seriously, if this was a job or a relationship, I'd be looking for another one right now. I'm like, this is the point of no return, like diminishing return at best. I'm training hard. I'm getting hurt more often. Not bad, but like nagging little, oh, this hurts, that hurts, my knee, my hip, my whatever, And I said, but I was still doing that same old, Monday, Wednesday, Friday lift, whatever that might have been at the time, Tuesday, Thursday, maybe Saturday, cardio, but whatever, exercise, bike. And when I say that, I don't mean now where you get on an Airdyne and punish yourself. I mean, I'm on a little recumbent, flipping through a magazine,
right.
And real matter of fact, he was like, you ever heard of CrossFit? I said, no. And he said, man, you should check it out. It's a free resource. And this was the original website. Remember?
Wow,
where it was like the white background.
I mean, this is back before my time. I think I've been doing it. I can't even remember how many years I've been. I'm like 10 or 12 years.
Okay.
But I started from the website.
Right.
But you're even, you opened your gym 14 years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were doing it prior to that even. So.
Yeah. Well, the original website that I remember was mostly white, and it would have, if it had any links to anything, the videos back then, even like the technology now, you use like your iPhone and you get like a decent, hey, and this is what we're doing and how we're doing it. Yeah. Back then it almost reminded you of those like, hey, check this dog fight out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like real grainy video, no sound, and you're like, I'm not even sure that's a dog. Like, what is that?
Watch these psychopaths go at it with each other. Yeah.
And so I go on the website, and I see the first workout that I saw, first one. And all it says is deadlift, 1-1-1-1.
Oh, I remember those.
So 10 number ones with a hyphen between them. I'm like, okay, I think that means deadlift like one. And then but I don't know. So I go to the comments, and sure enough, right? Okay, somebody explain this. I don't understand it, right? There's already questions, right? And it's like, yeah, that's 10 attempts at a single rep. And you could escalate till you can't, or you could pick a challenging and do what it would do. There's no wrong answer, right? So I looked at that, and the first thought that crossed my mind, I was like, why would I do that? Again, my mentality was completely different. I was like, well, I don't play a sport that would require me to do deadlifts.
Right.
I'm not a lineman.
So what'd you do?
I didn't do it. So what I did was I sat there and I scrolled through the website
and found other ones.
And I was like, you know what? I don't like that one. I don't know what that is. I don't even know. And then I realized, I was like, man, this is probably just not for me. I just don't think it's for me. All right, great. So I see my same friend the next day at breakfast. And he was like, I've noticed this with a lot of CrossFitters, and I am this way. When I like something and I know it works, or I believe in it, I will pester the shit out of you with it.
Right.
No, really, this is why you got to try it.
Yeah.
he was like that, but he was very, very like reserved, you know. And he's like, "So, did you check out the website?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." He said, "What'd you think?" And I said, "You know what? It's neat. I like it, but I don't think it's for me."
Yeah.
So real matter of fact, he's like, "Well, let me ask you something." He's like, "Where are you going? Like, you're here for 6 months. Like, give it a try."
Yeah.
So I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, you know, stuff that you would do on deployment that you might not take the time to do elsewhere. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Why not? Right. But the only thing I did, I went back and I got online again and I started to take a close look at it. And I thought, all right, I don't know what some of this is, so I'm going to need to read up on it. So what I'll do is I'm going to go back like the 3 on 1 off.
Right.
I'm going to go back 3. Okay. But I think at the time I was like, I'm going to do the day before. Right. So that day I did the deadlifts. Right. But now I go on YouTube and I'm like, okay, what's a deadlift? I know what it is.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I really get it.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, I find this old grainy video. That's a deadlift. Okay. And I did it. The next day, that was it. I mean, that's what that workout right there. That's what hooked me 100%. I felt like every muscle in my body. I mean, like
deadlifts will do that.
Right. And I was like, oh my God, like, you know, not only, you know, the posterior chain and all that and everything that should be affected was, but then I'm like, the muscles in my hands, muscles in my feet, my rear delts. I was like, how the hell are my rear delts? So that was it. And I will say the downside though was this. I didn't pay enough attention to the subtleties of like, hey, read this before you do it.
Right. I went in to do one of those 1-1-1-1-1s, and that's what I always thought it was like just 1 rep, you know, like a max effort or whatever it was. And I went into a gym in Melbourne, Australia. I think it was St. Kilda, CrossFit St. Kilda. And the guy said, okay, well, we're going to work up to your max effort, and then we're going to go at 85% of it for 1-1-1. And so we did like, you know, like 10, and then like 7, 5, 3, 1. And I was like beat at that point. And he was like, now we're going to do the 1-1-1-1. And I was like, no, I'm done. I just did a workout.
Right.
And he was like, no, this is where the workout starts. And it wasn't a warm up. I mean, we were lifting heavy to get to that. And I went, oh, now this whole 1 rep makes sense. I thought, you know, you just walk in, you do 1. You do 1. And,
right.
And when I was first doing CrossFit on my own, I was like, this is easy. I just did 5 ones. You know, like I did. And I used to tell people, this is the greatest workout in the world. I did 5 reps and I left. You know, like that's all I did.
Right.
And you know how long that takes? I was in the gym 8 minutes and I left.
This is better than 7-minute abs.
Yeah. I didn't understand it. And like today I came into your gym, you had programmed some hero fucking workout that was brutal. I haven't worked out in 3 weeks. I looked at it, I go, no, you're not going to ruin my Christmas, Mike.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
You're not going to ruin my Christmas. It was a 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 of medicine balls, box jump,
kettlebell swings.
Yeah. And I was like, you're not ruining my Christmas. I'm not doing that volume. And then I was like, maybe I'll cut it in half. And I was like, not even. And then I just went and I jumped to your yesterday, which was 21-15-9 of ring dips, toes to bar, deadlifts. And that still probably I'm going to have some ab issues that I'll remind you. But no, it's great. I love this gym. I love coming to see you. What I wanted to ask you is your business looks great. Your gym is incredible. If you're ever in Pittsburgh, you need to stop in here. It's CrossFit Pittsburgh. It doesn't get any easier than that.
Right.
This is the OG of Pittsburgh, and nicest people in the world. Family run. I can't say enough about you guys. Everyone here is nice, wonderful people. You can't miss it. It's pink.
Exactly.
And you can find them at CrossFit Pittsburgh, right?
Correct.
CrossFit Pittsburgh. Do you have anything to plug? Anything going on?
Oh, wow.
You do have an L1 cert going on here.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We have the L1 coming up in January, but also, and this is exciting for us. We were asked if we would host a specialty course for adaptive coaching.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I'm really, really excited about that. Really awesome. Excited about that. And it's been great. It's been great being around and seeing this the kind of evolution, of the community.
Yeah, and anywhere for them to find you? Are you on Instagram or?
Yeah, we're all over Instagram. What's that the thing that all you kids do now? Facebook time or something?
Shut the fuck
Twitter. I think we tweet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah. You know what? Here's what's funny though, is like we got younger people that do all that.
Do it all for
right?
you. That's
because I'm a hazard. You know, I'm not even on the right page.
You have Pukey on the wall.
Oh, hey, can I tell the Pukey story?
Sure.
Because it's pretty badass,
Sure.
I think. All right. So, what's the brand? As RX, I think it is, as prescribed, as RX. Anyway, I think that's who they are. No disrespect. I'm old. But here's my thing, right? I'd put out a disclaimer, okay? Been ambushed a few times, been blown up 3 times, been in a vehicle rollover.
When we talk about that?
So it's like short-term memory loss. So if I say, you know, as RX, don't bust my balls.
We're doing that on our next episode.
Don't bust my balls if I get that wrong, okay? But this poster, it arrives in the mail one day. It's in this like mailing tube. And I take it out because you get a lot of promotional stuff.
Yeah.
You know, people want you to try their stuff, and what better way to do it? You know, you send it to a box, and if they like it, right? So I open this up, and it is a like life size. That's from the floor, like to the
it's a huge,
it's very big,
huge Pukey,
and it's like a life size Pukey. And it says on top, it says CrossFit, and then on the bottom it says unbuyable.
Right. This is from when Lauren Janai and the whole
exactly.
I just had her on the show about when she was going to sell to a venture capital firm and or let them buy her out.
Right.
Yeah.
So it resulted in a pretty long, drawn out legal battle.
Yep.
Right. And I think that was the resolve was Greg was like, hey, look, you do what you want, but at the same time we have to be given some type of right of first refusal.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, this is really cool, but I don't understand it. I mean, I understand it, but why did I get one? Right. So I call Life as prescribed, Life as RX. So I call them up and get this nice young lady on the phone. And I said, hi. I said, this is Mike Pietragallo from CrossFit Pittsburgh. Anytime we're talking to a vendor, I always say that first so they don't think I'm like some, moron. And I said, yeah, I got a strange question for you. And it's always best to preface it with that too. Mm-hmm. I said, I received this poster. I don't really, and she's like, oh, the Pukey poster. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah. And she's like, did you look on the back? No. So you look on the back and it's like handwritten in like a Sharpie, like whatever the number of how many. And it's a very low number. I don't remember what ours is. And she's like, yeah. She's like, that's from Greg.
Oh, wow.
She said, he wanted to, throw out a thank you to the maybe the originals, or the first, the core group. I don't know how many there were, to tell you the truth. I'd have to pull it down off the wall to look. But that was that.
Oh, that's
it just
cool.
Showed up.
So
really,
what were
really
you? What on the list of CrossFits? How?
Yeah. Which is also kind of neat because one of our coaches several years ago, he wanted to get into website development and apparel. And I said, sure, whatever we can do to help. He's like, well, let me set up a website for you. Great. Let me do branded apparel for you. I said, dude, look, if there's a way, like in the original Rocky, right? Yeah, hey, Rock, I think I know a way to make some money, I was like, hey, use the name. You're a good guy. We'd be happy to be your first customer, so to speak, right? So he calls me one day and he said, hey, what number affiliate are you? I was like, I don't know. I don't know.
You got to be up there.
He said, well, what I want to be able to put that. I want to incorporate that,
cool.
Right? I said, okay. So I called affiliate support, right? And I said, hey, I got a crazy question for you. What's that? Well, what's our affiliate number? And I thought this was kind of cool too. They came right back and they're like, I don't know. They're like, we actually never tracked that, but how you can track it. I was like, okay. They're like, go to the website, go to the, affiliates. They're in order of precedence. Yeah. So like whatever one you are, like you're in there, like you just have to count the number. Right. I was like, okay, great. So this was a few years ago. So I counted at the time and we were like 54.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, 54. I was like, that's kind of cool. And then you see for example, I remember CrossFit Honolulu's just in front of us, a couple of spots, mm-hmm. Like they were right before we were and that kind of thing. And so it's pretty cool. And I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago, it just occurred to me, let's look again. I don't remember what the number is, but it is way lower than 54. So what happens is you get affiliates who maybe just close up shop.
Right.
Or they just de-affiliate.
Right.
We'll keep the gym, but we're no longer CrossFit,
right.
And, or they merge,
So what are you now?
Oh, we're real low. We're real low. I think we're negative now. We're -3 or something. We're low.
That's a testament to you guys. You've stuck around. You've kept it 14 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations on doing this. Your gym just gets better and better every time I'm
Thank
here. I like the physical therapy section, the massage. And I might stop in maybe tomorrow. Who knows how sore I'll be.
Absolutely. 10 o'clock.
But I love you guys. Can't thank you enough for doing the show. And if you want to find Mike, CrossFit Pittsburgh, everything, Instagram, Facebook, all that. And if you're in Pittsburgh, you can't miss the gym. It's big and pink. And I want them to put big CrossFit out front, CrossFit Pittsburgh.
That's right.
And because Pittsburgh's like the hardest, like everything's black and gold for the Steelers or the Pirates or the Penguins. And everybody's all about black and gold. So the fact that you'd have pink is amazing. You should paint it in rainbow CrossFit. So they'd be like, is that a gay bar? What's going on in there? Great times. And thanks for listening to the show. Always rate, review, comment on iTunes. It really helps us, guys. Go to our Patreon. You can donate $3 to watch the videos on Patreon, or $5, and you can get yourself maybe a Maya Pucks and Leopard Claw, which I'm going to get Mike here one. He's going to need it because he's an old man like me.
That's right.
And what else? Check out my dates, all my tour dates at eddyift.com. Here's what's coming up. I'm just going to reiterate it again. I've got Minneapolis, Scottsdale. What's after Scottsdale is Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Then Sunnyvale, California, which is up in the Bay Area. Then I will be in Pittsburgh again. And then I will be in Boston, New York, Boston, Australia, Adelaide, Melbourne. No, I'm sorry. I'm not doing Melbourne. I apologize. I'm not doing Melbourne. Adelaide, Launceston, Sydney. And then I come back and I'll be in Las Vegas. So check out all my dates at eddyift.com. Thank you guys for supporting the show. And go to our Instagram and join it again, because we separated the Instagrams when Scott and Armin left the show. So now it's just Wadcast Podcast on Instagram, and I'm going to be posting lots of pictures. I'm going to take a lot of pictures here. Well, you might need to turn the lights back on. I'll take a picture of the pink building. And thank you guys again for all your support. Thank you, Mike Pietragallo.
Thank you.
And check him out. And that is it.